What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Stick Theory podcast. Today, we're going to be joined by Heritage Spoons. This is a super awesome episode. He's the developer of the new Antrea Mesh coming out. He likes to keep it weird on a lot of his stringing. So, this episode, we kind of go into a deep dive on how Antrea became a reality for him, and we also touch on a little bit of his beef with Pocket Nirvana. So, super fun episode, lots of laughs, lots of insight. Can't wait for you guys to enjoy it. Heritage fans, thank you so much for coming on Stick Theory. It's going to be a super awesome episode, getting to talk about your Entree Mesh, how you got into stringing and everything. One thing we do like to start with, how'd you come up with the name Heritage Spoons?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. Super happy to be here. Super happy to sort of nerd out and talk about stringing. Most of the people in my life aren't stringers, so to be able to, like I said, nerd out about it is
Yeah.
is always exciting to me. But um, I guess to start, where did the name come from? Um, well, heritage is kind of just a word I picked.
Hmm.
It felt like a strong, nice word, but then I threw that in front of spoons just because growing up that was sort of the joke. We called our sticks, we called them our spoons, and we didn't come up with it, but it just felt like a funny sort of good eye-grabbing name.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what kind of got you into lacrosse, and then after that, what pulled you towards like the stringing product development side?
So I started playing somewhere in elementary school. Um, just all my friends were playing, so I wanted, see what's lacrosse all about. Got
Yeah.
into it. Played all throughout high school. Didn't play collegiately, but that was for I wasn't very good. So, I was going to focus on getting an education and see where I could
Yeah.
go with with that. But um, I I had sort of always toyed around with stringing my sticks when I was younger, and then when I went off to college, I didn't take a stick initially, and then I was in a Dick's Sporting Goods one day, and I was like, "Oh, that's a Razor 2.0 for $5. That's kind of a good deal. Let's see what I can string up, see if I still got any magic in it." And that sort of just rolled into a hobby that turned into an obsession that turned into Antrea,
Yeah.
effectively.
That's really cool. So obviously that Razor too, that's probably how we kind of got the catalyst for it. Do you remember the type of pocket you were stringing in there?
Oh. I still have it, um,
Okay.
but it's since been strung a number of
Yeah.
different ways. So no, it probably had Hero 2 was probably the top of the line mesh you could get at the time. Um, so it probably had Hero 2 and probably some U's. I just kind of strung it a number of
Yeah.
different ways initially, but then right sort of when I got back into stringing, Lax Dip came out with their
Hmm.
powder dye, and I was like, I could dye lacrosse. That how hard could it be? It spent like maybe 8 hours trying to do a wood grain dye that came out looking more like sort of like a raptor skin camo pattern, but I've held on to it just because I think the dye came out pretty okay.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So obviously we're starting out with the Razor 2. What's changed most about your process of how you approach stringing sticks over the years?
It started out, and you've had a number of guests at this point, and they've all sort of mentioned this the same idea where you start out following patterns. You gotta
Hmm.
It's a good jumping off point for learning how what you do when you're installing a sidewall affects how the pocket will perform.
Hmm.
So I started off, copied basically everything I could off of U-string, and then I guess one day something just kind of clicked, and I got I got bored with mesh. So then what do you do when you get bored with mesh? Naturally, you learn how to string a traditional.
Hmm.
And oh man, my traditionals they were terrible. They were absolute garbage. But it was fun. It was more time consuming than just stringing a piece of mesh. Um, and it was a little bit more of a way for me to express my creativity through stringing. Because there's no wrong way to string a
Hmm.
traditional. You'll string them more effective than others, but it's really it's an expression and an extension of your creativity.
Yeah.
Uh, so then I got kind of good at stringing traditionals, and I got bored with that. Um, so it really started to become how weird can we get with this,
Yeah.
and how much fun can we have with it, which sort of led me to that. I don't know how deep in my archives you've gone looking back.
I
Um,
I know I've seen one. I think it was one a recent when you were going back into the weird stuff. You wrapped the string around the top sidewall, but had the mesh going through. I'm like, what is going on here? But I loved it.
people have been loving that post. It's
Yeah.
I need to post like a follow up from it. I admittedly am very bad about posting, and I'm admittedly very bad about um, video in particular. I usually will take a couple of pictures and then get the stick dirty, and then I'm like, oh, it's not worthy of being photographed,
Yeah.
which is totally the wrong mentality. Um, but then even before that, um, I was kind of hooked on this idea of how would I do this differently? How could I do this my own kind of way? And at that time, I think the warp had been out for maybe maybe a year, maybe 2 years.
Mhm.
I'm terrible with timelines and all that, so don't quote me or hold me too hard on that. But I started doing a hand knotted Kevlar pocket.
Mhm.
Um, it's for those who are watching back and who are following me on Instagram. Um, it's in a mint green Rabel 2. And it's got sort of like a tan look to it, so you can go back and look at this later. But excuse me. So that was a is a process called macrame.
Mhm.
It's not a huge secret. It's an old art form of just tying knots. So I took it to the next level and tied a bunch of knots, and it took years off my life, I think. Um, so then it developed into, well, what else weird can we do?
Mhm.
And that's sort of where I've been at for the past couple of
Yeah.
years is just, I hate to say less about performance and more about it looking cool, because there are a number of performance, I think, benefits to Antrea Mesh,
Mhm.
but there is definitely something to be said about the appeal of something visually.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not a diehard look good, play good guy, but I believe it to some extent.
Yeah. So obviously looking good, you're going traditional, you're doing your own knots. That kind of takes us into this concept of the entree mesh. So what was kind of the catalyst for you to have that idea to come up with this?
So, and I kind of briefly mentioned this to you before we got started, but
Hmm.
I'll give a little bit more of an in-depth story here. Been stringing weird stuff for a long time. Most of my family was tired of hearing about it, but I could still always just, rely on my dad to be like, "Hey, yeah, that's cool, whatever that is." Um, so I had started messing around with some different techniques and um, come up with a couple of what we'll call working prototypes. Um, and showed my dad, and he kind of realized this might actually be something. There might be something to it. And he pushed me a little bit harder and got a little bit more involved. And he 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 really saw the potential
Yeah.
in what we were doing, I guess. Um, because he likes to say, when I got the first real entree working prototype together, he said that he saw a spark in me that he's never seen before in myself. So, um, I like that sentiment that if I was able to pick up, this is, hey, something, this is different, and he was able to pick up on it too. We're hoping that that spark can spread a little bit.
Yeah. That's awesome. So obviously Antrea mesh, that's how it sparks. But there's other meshes out there that are pretty high quality. Some would say like the Hero 4s and the String Kings. What kind of led you to this design of the Antrea mesh as opposed to this just standard hexagon or diamond mesh shapes?
Um, a lot of it's driven by the process, but I've always had this idea of sort of directing the ball towards the release point. You know,
Hmm.
that's physically what you're doing, and how can you better have that shape? And um, it's cool because we kind of have the U shooting string. If you look at our TR1 design, I like
Yeah.
to say we were able to bring back the U without,
Yeah.
bringing back the U
For
a
those of
little bit,
you wondering, you can kind of see it in there
in that
going across.
it sort
Yeah.
of arcs, and that's just the natural shape of the mesh. Cool thing about it is you can you there's a lot of different stringability aspects to it. Obviously, you can apply it to a lot of different pockets, but so
Hmm.
that's where the different designs come in. It was sort of the idea where we could hone in um, different pocket styles with different mesh designs. So um, we've we've brought to market the first two designs, with the TR1 being the first, and that's the one with the sort of U design, um, versus our second men's offering in the backbone, which I think you also have a piece
Yeah.
of.
I
Yeah.
got it strung up in this Rebel O. Nice baggy, super smooth. Love it.
Yeah. And and we're not we're not so again, people that have followed me for a long time know that I like to put a lot of shooting strings in in my heads as much as I can. So it's weird, like, why come out with a mesh that you don't need shooting strings for? And it's you can still put them in, you can still
Yeah.
put them in and keep it legal. But to me, shooting strings are funny because they're just another point of failure.
Hmm.
Um, if they're too tight, you're gonna have results. If they're too loose, you're gonna have different results. And a lot of kids struggle to. It took me a long time to get down shooting strings, um, but yeah, they really make quite the difference on a pocket. So if you can eliminate that point of failure by not necessarily needing them at all, um, I think that's kind of a win.
Yeah. Now, shooting strings are definitely one thing. So when I was first starting stringing, I was like, oh, the shooting string, that's the easiest part. Then you start playing around with it. You're just like, oh, if I accidentally pull this too tight, the ball's going straight to the ground. If it's too loose, it's not going to have enough tension. It's just, there's so much small little details that you don't pick up on until you've probably been doing it for like a few heads. And then you start playing around with it, and you're just like, oh, that's why that's happening. So, but that's what
Yeah,
I think I do like about the entree mesh, stringing it up a little bit. One, the shooting strings, but two, it's just super smooth coming out. I'm sure that's by design, but it also has that like I see in my post, I like a super shifty pocket for my coaching sticks, so it can
hmm
kind of like cradle one-handed goofing off for like shift high, and this does absolutely perfect. I'm just sure that's by
Shifts
design.
everywhere, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. I love it. But so how much of the process, I'm sure it's some proprietary stuff. How much can you go into like how does it get made?
I can't overshare here.
Yeah,
This is
of
where I
course.
have to walk the fine line, because as a creative type, and I want to be able to tell everyone how everything and share, but unfortunately, I do have to keep some things to
Yeah,
myself. But
of
I can
course.
say it's each piece is handcrafted with love in the United
Wow.
States, by a person.
That is awesome. So going back into it, we obviously this is a step to push mesh innovation forward. So we led that process. What would be some other innovations that you'd like to still see maybe Entrea comes out with, or maybe some other things? Like what are some more steps we could take as an industry?
More steps. It's hard to say things have gotten stagnant,
Hmm.
because new stuff comes out all the time. And by no means am I saying things have gotten stagnant.
Yeah.
Um, but there is a lot of the same. And this isn't to knock anyone. It's There's only so much you can do with plastic, metal, and
Hmm.
carbon, right?
Yeah.
So um, I I don't necessarily know how I'd like to see the equipment start to or continue to change, but
Hmm.
Like I look at companies like Gate and they're all the crazy things they're doing with all their heads, and I'm like,
I need the
yeah, this
goalie
is
head that's been leaked out. I
yeah,
need my
yeah.
hands on it.
It looks awesome.
It does.
They really figured out the truss sort of design there,
Yeah.
and that thing looks sweet. But yeah, I like the idea of pushing things not only in a performance uh manner, but also with an aesthetic um side to it, because I don't know. I think back and I look at like the Hemi Cuda from Harrow all those years ago, which is the one
Hmm.
piece composite stick, and I'm like, why did we stop this? We were so close. We could have kept
Yeah.
like I think a couple more years in the oven, and that thing could have been perfect.
Yeah. That's
But
my thought.
I don't really know too much about carbon, so
Yeah. I mean, so that's my thought process. I feel like the warp kind of coming out the time it did kind of got a bad rap a little bit, and I feel like, in my opinion, it got marketed a little wrong. Like, I think if it had been come out as like, hey, here's a youth development stick, it's consistent every time, I think it would have been done great, but you don't really see them much anymore because I guess like they shut down the R&D of it. But it was a new step to the industry, and not a lot of people liked it coming out, but I was a huge fan. I thought it was super cool.
I'm a diehard Warp fanboy. I bought the first one the day it came out for $250. I probably bought I've bought I can't say I still own every model, but I bought every model that is released. Uh I hope that doesn't lose me any credit amongst
No,
stringers,
no, no.
but I'm a huge Warp fanboy because of what you said. It does what it's supposed to do. It throws
Yeah.
the ball, it catches the ball. Maybe it doesn't have the same level of hold that a lot of players are used to, or but for some players it's perfect.
Hmm.
Um, and to again take out that point of failure with stringing, it comes with its own downsides in that if the head breaks, you need a brand new head. But um, there's trade-offs to it. I would I would probably agree that um, it could have been marketed a little bit differently, and I
Hmm.
think it could still be, possibly around today if it isn't still around, and not to say it isn't, but
It's
um,
not as prominent as it was
it's
when it
not
was
as
coming out.
prominent. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, so obviously Lacrosse has a pretty good community. I'm sure you felt this with like the support I've seen you get for this Antrea Mesh. How does social media and like this community, how has that kind of helped you in your design process here?
Um, it's it's helped in that we've gotten a lot of feedback very rapidly and a lot of exposure very rapidly. Um, and it where that comes in is, oh, I can make a tweak to the design and we can implement that considering we're much smaller and we have a lot more control
Hmm.
over the manufacturing um and the design. So some early feedback we got on TR1, we made some tweaks to it and we're able to very rapidly put that into production. um
Yeah,
so
so
I don't know if that really answered the question, but
I think it does. Like more so is just like I guess the community aspect is what I'm getting at here because it's kind of a little subset because obviously lacrosse we're still a growing sport, so it's still the small community. Like you'll have the pro guys after these PLL games just like hanging out for 3 hours to sign every kid's autograph. You're not seeing that in like the NFL or anything. But the stringing is almost like a microcosm of that community. So it's a community within a community. How have you kind of seen that is kind of what I'm getting at.
um you know I will agree that the community is very small. It's kind of crazy how small it is.
Yeah.
Um, and and I'll share the same sentiment that your other guests have shared, in that everyone, I haven't met anyone within the stringing community who hasn't been like willing and open to helping. Whether it's learning how to do a knot, um, what maybe reading a pattern means, what this means, or whatever it is, people are just very willing to help. I guess how that really ties into the design. I guess I'll be honest and say it hasn't really.
Yeah,
Um, at least not yet. But to sort of circle now, circle back to the community aspect of it. Yeah, no, people are great in this community,
it's
and
awesome.
just nothing but willing to help, because I think everyone sort of realizes that it's kind of one way to help the game continue to progress is by helping people learn the basics of stringing,
Yeah.
or advanced techniques, or whatever you want to learn. Is it's good for the game, and thus helps grow the game.
hmm
So
Yeah, and that's my biggest thing because I always like to joke with a bunch of guys around here, a couple guys in Atlanta, I see them regularly. It's like in my opinion, like someone has to string the stick. So almost without this string community, it's almost like the lacrosse world semi can't function on its own.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you got players that string their own sticks, and then that inevitably leads to stringing their teammates' sticks, and then maybe your teammate gets interested and just sitting there watching you, um, and it helps continue to grow it. So, you know, it's
Yeah,
um, it's definitely an important aspect to the game, and like you said, you can't play without a stick, and
exactly.
you can't have a stick if it's not strung.
Yeah. So obviously we've talked about mesh. We also have to talk about heads on here a little bit. If you could design like your dream head, obviously you're designing your dream mesh. What would that dream head look like?
Mm. Dream head. Hmm. You'd think I would have thought about this, right? You'd think I would have put some thought into this. But honestly, just because the whole goal and hope is maybe Entree can one day become a full-time job,
Yeah.
and something to support my family, and think, well, how can you grow with that? You can't just sell mesh, and you got to continue to grow and expand the product line. So you'd think like, oh, he's probably thought about it, but honestly, I get so overwhelmed when I hear about like the cost of injection mold,
Yeah.
uh or injection molding molds. So I'm just like, I don't want to think about that until it's even like a possibility in the realm of possibility, I guess. So um I'd say the Gate D1, the band one, was my dream head, because
Yeah.
just seeing leaked pictures of that up until it
It's
came
awesome.
out, and then actually getting it in hand, and then it getting banned, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
I do see, I see the reasoning behind it, but that head is still, it's top tier. And then
Yeah.
the original Gate D2 that never came out officially, I guess. I don't know.
hmm
I was able to get one, and you can find them occasionally, but um, those some amalgamation of those two heads together is probably my dream head.
Yeah, that is that. I like that. I like that answer a lot. I'm a pole by nature, so when the Gate D came out, I personally didn't get it because I just saw the writing on the wall to an extent. I was like, the NCAA doesn't like fun, so I was like, 2 months later, it was gone. I'm like, this is lame, but
Yeah,
I do have two on my wall now. Thankfully, they're good for
there you go.
coaching a little bit, but so they're
Yeah.
awesome. So obviously, you're developing the Entree mesh. Would there be any shout outs to some? Even this could even be pre-Entrea. Just some shout outs to some stringers and developers you've admired, kind of helped you along your way.
One person who's definitely been a huge hindrance throughout this entire process, and I'd be remiss to not mention them, would be my good buddy Pocket Nirvana.
Yeah,
He's not active in so much in stringing, but he if you pay attention, he's always liking stuff. So
he's lurking.
he's still lurking for sure. Um, but no, I joke. He's in no way a hindrance. He's probably one of my biggest silent cheerleaders, as much as he'd hate to admit that. Um, but like, I'll still shoot him pictures of stuff I'm working on, and he'll be like, "That's sick," or "That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You're wasting your time." And so it's good. I got to shout him out. But then, man, look, as small as the community is, like everyone's great.
hmm
So I'll keep it at Pocket Nirvana, just because people Some people might remember our real fake beef that we were having a number of years ago, but
Hey, we might
just
have to
know,
settle that on here at some point.
yeah, bring him on. We'll see if we can get him to crawl out of his cave.
So. What would be some advice you'd give a younger player, or even like at this point, a young product developer trying to either start their own thing or just get better at stringing?
I don't want to just say practice because that's obvious. Um, I'd say don't be afraid to get creative and get weird with it. If you
Hmm.
see something, and then along those lines, don't be afraid to put some time into researching how to do something. Um, I, I've spent more time trying things that don't work than I care to admit. I've wasted countless hours of my life tying knots that should never have been tied, um, because it just wasn't going to work from the jump. But don't be afraid to try something different.
Hmm.
Have your gamer, have your stick that's good to go, that's consistent, and you can play with. But if you can, and I understand lacrosse is an expensive sport, and stringing becomes a very quickly expensive hobby. But if you can
Yes.
afford a second stick to something you can just mess around with, don't be afraid to try a traditional. Watch tons of YouTube tutorials. Look up different. I use that the site is animated knots or something, just to look through different types of knots and see can any of these be used for anything.
Hmm.
Um, so that'd be my tip. Have fun with it and don't be afraid to maybe spend some time researching. I know that's not the fun part of it, but it certainly will pay off in the end.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, that research part is big. So I started out, I think, kind of similar to you, that U string, a lot of those ECD Greg videos. But it was more so I wasn't necessarily watching the patterns. It was more so learning each individual knot. Like when I started training, I learned what interlock was, SI, stacked SIs, knotted SIs, like what each one does differently. And then through that, I kind of figured out, oh, I can combine these two knots here to get this type of shape here. And
Right.
that's the biggest thing right there. Is just learn what each thing does. Don't just learn the whole. The whole process is good, but if you can boil it down, I think that helps even better.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, if because once you get that understanding of what how these knots interact with the mesh and how feeding the mesh up or down affects the pocket's performance, that's when the real fun starts because
Hmm.
then you can stop asking for patterns and start just stringing, right?
Yeah.
So that's when the real fun starts.
All right. Well, Heritage, as we kind of wind our way down here, we'd like to finish this out with a rapid fire round. You cool with that?
Stu,
Awesome. All right. So this first one is supposed to be favorite mesh, but so we're gonna put an asterisk on this. Favorite mesh outside of Antrea.
favorite mesh outside of Entree. STX not mesh.
Not mesh. That's a sleeper pick right there. I love that one.
Yeah, got to
Yeah,
pick something weird.
I'm sure. What's your go-to knot?
Not. I've been doing a lot of stuff to the inside lately, so that's more of a weave. So my go-to knot, um, I'll give you a good one. So for joining two strings together,
Hmm.
um, you can do like a double overhand knot, or you can do a snake knot. I think is I've always called them rain knots, but I think most of the community knows them as snake knots.
Hmm.
Um, I think there's tons of tutorials out there. Paracord Guide is a great YouTube reference for learning different knots. So yeah, snake knot. There you go.
Snake knot. I like that. Most underrated head of all time.
Underrated. Oh, it's a Brine asset. Asset? I want to say it's the Brine asset is the one where the sidewall holes kind of they go they're sort of floating between the top and bottom rails.
Hmm. That sounds
Um,
right.
Yeah, I think that was ahead of its time. I was able to find one of those on eBay recently and strung it to the inside and I was like, yeah, this this is awesome because you can get just like a ridiculous bag out of it
Yeah,
with simple stacking ones to the inside.
I love that. So on the flip side, what's the most overrated head of all time?
Overrated. Oh, Pocket Nirvana's gonna hate me for this. Uh, Evo Pro X6. I don't get the hype. I don't get it.
Really?
I don't get it. I don't
That's
get
a
it.
that's a holy grail to a lot of people. I
I
love
know.
it.
I'm gonna lose a lot of friends here, but um, mostly just to take a shot at Pocket Nirvana. I'll say the Evo Pro
You have
X6.
to. That is awesome. And last one, let's finish up. What's your favorite head that you're able to string?
Currently, um, I've I've been enjoying. What do I got on the table over there? I picked up a bunch of STX Stallion 900s
Hmm.
from the STX warehouse sale, so I've been kind of burning through those lately, and they're fun because they've got the center hole at the top. But I'll say I got to give it to the String King Mark 3V at this point.
Yeah.
Um, no shade to the 2V. I just like how much stiffer it is. I like it's got a little bit more forward cant to it. And with all those sidewall holes, you can do anything with it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fun.
Well, for the mad scientist like yourself, I'm sure you love all those extra holes. But nah, I love one thing I am a fan of. I do like how you do like I think you say like keeping it weird a little bit. I love all the random designs you're throwing out there, so that's super cool for me. So please keep doing
Yeah,
those.
absolutely. I certainly will.
Yeah. All right. Well, Heritage Spoon, this was awesome. Where can listeners find your work? Maybe even go purchase some on Antrea Mesh themselves.
So if you're looking for mesh, we have plenty in stock ready to ship through our website. It's Antrea.net. I thought that was pretty clever to have a .net
I like
instead of
it.
a .com. Or follow us through Instagram or Heritage Spoons on Instagram, and that's got a link to our website. Feel free to reach out with any questions or comments or concerns.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Heritage, thank you so much for coming on the Stick Theory. To everyone listening, hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Get us help grow this page. Maybe get some other big names on here. Maybe we can even get Pocket Nirvana out of his cave on here to settle their beef
Yeah,
on this episode. So, but yeah, thank you again for coming on, sir. It was a pleasure having you.
thank you for having me. It was a great time.